Hello, my friends. John LaRuffa here with a different episode today called Straight Up Solo. So, I'm going to be giving you my impressions of how board games play from a solo standpoint since I do so much solo gaming. And today we're going to take a look at The Search for Planet X. This is a relatively new release, and I'm going to tell you kind of what I think about it from a solo standpoint, show you a little bit of the gameplay, and then give you some highlights and lowlights. All right, let's dive in. Okay, so from a standpoint of the solo game, it plays very similar to the multiplayer. So that's good. You get the very authentic experience in Planet X, or the Search for Planet X, pardon me, when you're doing that. And that's primarily because most of the action, as far as how to do things, are going to be taking place on the iPad app. So when you go ahead and start the solo game, it's going to allow you to begin, and you can choose a standard or an expert mode. I've set the game board up for standard. So it goes ahead and it gives you the special code, and then you have to choose which side you're sitting on. In this case, I've got the board oriented for the autumn side, so away we go with the autumn equinox. You can give yourself as much or little information as you want to start. So we're just beginners here. We're going to get 8 facts. Then you view your starting information, and boom. This tells you all sorts of things that you can immediately write down on your notepad, crossing out sector information, or basically you get a lot of this information that says this sector does not have this sector does not have this, etc., etc. And so you're going to go through that, write it down, take your notes, and then you're going to start the game. And when you start the game, it's going to give you the categories of the different types of research to remind you what they are, as well as the Planet Conference about what it's going to focus on. And then away you go. And this is great. So you take, normally with this game, you're going to take your turns doing these top actions. But with the bot, when the bot goes to take a turn, you're going to simply input the information in here, and the bot is going to take all the regular types of actions that you would normally or that you'd see from your opponent. So I think that's fantastic. So let's just talk about a couple different things that you could do in this game, just to give you a flavor for it. The choices you're trying to make here, the goal is to locate Planet X. And to locate Planet X, you need to figure out which sector it's in, and you also need to figure out what's on the left sector and the right sector of it, the two adjacent sectors. So it's not just good enough to guess where it is. You have to also identify the other things. That keeps it from somebody just saying, all right, I'm going to take a wild guess. Ooh, look, I guessed right, 10 points, yay. Guessing the actual sector is a bad idea, but if you determine where it is, you can get up to 10 points. But you're gaining points in this game in a little different way. It's not just where things are, where Planet X is. It's also where other things are. So throughout the game, you're going to get to these little spaces over here that I'll show you that have these little icons like this. And when this arrow comes into these little spaces, you're going to get the opportunity on regular mode to submit a peer review. When you do that, you get to choose a peer review, pardon me. You get to submit a theory. When you do that, you get to choose one of these types of objects that you think where it is. Let's say I have a really good idea that a comet, is going to be in sector 11. So I would go ahead and take my comet, put it face down. You don't need to put it face down if you're playing solo, of course. Then you're going to use the app to see, is the bot going to do that? So the bot is going to, you say bot submit theory. It'll say where he is. You'll see reveal, and then it'll tell you whether it's going to do the theory or not. A very good situation there because it's all automatically done. So it's extremely easy to manage. The only things you have to do for the bot in this game is accurately move his turn marker around the board and accurately put down the hidden theory first and then turn it into what it really is. It's very helpful if you take down the kind of turns that he does, because it'll tell you what he does each turn. So for instance, on the first turn, when I say bot take turn, it's going to tell me the bot's pawn is currently located in time slot number 1. Yes, it is. Okay. The person, again, who's in the back always goes first. So you go ahead and you click on this, and it'll tell you exactly what he's going to do. The bot surveys for asteroids in sector 1 through 4. Advance the pawn 3 times on the time track to sector 4. So first of all, you can take note if you want, and I highly recommend you do. Okay, the bot, surveyed in sectors 1 through 4 for asteroids. Okay, and then you're going to move him to the 4th sector. All right, based on to sector 4 based on what it says. That's it. It's great from a standpoint of a deduction game, an information deduction game, where you don't have to do a whole lot of complex things. What's the bot going to do? If it's this situation, if it's that situation, it's fantastic. So I really like that. All right, so enough about the bot. Let's talk a little bit about what you're doing in this game besides. This is basically a game that you're doing hidden information, you're trying to deduce where something is, and the different objects follow these different logic rules, okay? So the logic rules are the same in all the games from a standpoint of these things. When you do the research, it will also tell you other additional logic rules so you can figure something out. So for instance, it might say, Planet X is never located directly opposite a comet. So that means, oh, well, if I can find the exact location of a comet, then I know where Planet X is not going to be. And so on and so forth. Or it'll say something like, the dwarf planet is located within 2 sectors of the other asteroids, or something like that. So it gives you some information, and you keep trying to deduce what's going to happen, where things are, and submit theories to score points. Because as you can see, at the end of the game, if you're the first to submit a theory, you're going to score 1 point. If you are correct about your theories, and you got to be correct, of course. And if you're correct about asteroid theories, you get 2 points for each of those. Comet theories, 3 points. Gas clouds 4, the dwarf planet 4, and potentially a maximum of 10 points if you are the first person to identify where Planet X is, and some other points if you also can identify it correctly after somebody triggers the end of the game. So I've played this game solo before, and I can tell you that the bot is definitely challenging, even on the solo mode with the 12 sectors. So I didn't go to 18 yet. I'm looking forward to trying that. But he gave me a run for my money, and I lost 24-12. So right away, there is something to love about this. There's going to be a competition. You're going to have to be able to interpret what the bot is doing and what he means to do on his turns. Because one thing that's interesting about this bot, when the bot submits a theory, it's always correct. You say, well, what does that mean? Well, that means that if you can figure out what he was doing in those sectors to kind of research that earlier, you can get an idea, okay, he searched for asteroids in 1 to 4. Later on, almost immediately, he said, I'm submitting a theory on Sector 3. Well, the only thing he's done so far in this game is search for asteroids, so it must mean that there's got to be an asteroid there. So you have to use that kind of deduction to figure out what's going on, so that gives you additional help. Otherwise, he's just going to smoke you. You're never going to catch up, and he's going to beat you really fast. So it's kind of cool to really put your thinking cap on with this one. As far as the other gameplay goes, I talked to you about surveying. You can also target different locations just to say, twice in the game you can say, hey, I want to know what's in Sector 7 or Sector 4. And it'll tell you exactly what that is. Costs you 4 time. And so, it's a relatively lengthy move. But, the surveying usually costs you 2, 3, or 4 time. 3 or 4 time when you're playing on the 12 sector one, and 2 time if you're playing on the larger one, if you have a very large survey window. So I think that's also interesting. The more precise the information, the more time it takes you to get, okay? So anyway, the last thing I'll mention is this is a mechanic where whoever's in the back is going to go next. And so it gives you the idea that, if you can spend your time wisely, you can get different information at different times. Plus, only a half of the board, and this rotates with the workers, or with your pawns, so only half of the board that is in the daytime side is available to survey or interact with. You can submit a theory about anything anytime you want, but you only get information on sectors when they're kind of in view. So I also think that's kind of cool. So that's kind of a quick overview about what the game does and how you play it. Again, it's a hidden information deduction game, and I'd say that the actual rules to playing it are quite simple because the app really walks you through your choices on your turn, and that's fantastic. So let me kind of give you my final thoughts as we go back to the front. Okay, so if you like hidden information and logical deduction games, this game is going to be very much in your sweet spot. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot to kind of consider. example of it, it's almost like working a Sudoku. You got to figure out where things are so you can figure out where other things aren't. If you don't kind of get an understanding of what I mean by logic deduction games. Although it has nothing to do with Sudoku, I'm just trying to use that as an example. So if you like that type of game, this game has it in spades, all right? There's plenty of things and there's plenty of randomness because the app handles everything, that you don't have to go through a lengthy process to try to set up conditions and do this and that. It's very much a streamlined experience only in that, which is great. Secondly, the rules are pretty light. You've got this stuff staring at you in the face while you're trying to figure out what you're doing. Okay, this tells you exactly the different rules, the different logic, and you have this right here on your player aid right in front of you. If you play the expert mode, you put an insert over there, it changes some things for expert mode. Very well done in that regard. From a solo standpoint, which is why I'm making this video, this is a masterpiece. And I say that because it's all, you can spend most of your brain power just focusing on what you're doing and what the opponent is doing, not on how do I make the opponent does, okay, I'm in this certain situation, there's this certain set of stuff going on, okay, what does he do? What is the situation now that he's moved to Sector 7 and there's asteroids been discovered? You don't have to worry about that. The app takes care of it all. So it's great. From a standpoint of whether that's worth your time as a solo player, if you like logic deduction games, I can't see anyone passing up a chance to try this solo. Now, of course, with other people, the experience might be different, might be better. I don't know. I'm only talking about the solo here. In fact, I've only played this solo, and I really enjoy it. So hopefully, from a standpoint of the solo gamer, you can understand that I like a lot what's here. There's not a lot of negatives, I have to say, because the overhead is pretty low. I guess the only negative is if you don't have access to an app or a device that can run apps or things like that, this is, of course, going to be an incompatible game for you. And the overhead is again all taken care of. I really can't think of a better way. I've never seen a solo game happen so flawlessly, being controlled by something else. Besides a couple of, I shouldn't say never. There are other games that that handle it pretty well with apps and such, but this one really does so because it is just very clear and clean in the interface and in the way that the app interacts with you and you interact with the app, and the way that the solo bot, you really only have to be placing theories and moving that thing, moving his pawn around. There's nothing else to do. So I really enjoyed this game. I think it's great. I think the production values are good. I think there's a lot to discover here if you're into these types of games. If you don't like logic and deduction kind of games, you're not going to like this one because it's purely about that. So it is 100% about that kind of hidden information and trying to deduce what's going on. And if you don't like those games, you will not like this. There's nothing else going on mechanically. So I hope this was informative. Please take some time to like and subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it. And again, this is John LaRuffa, and I'm giving you straight up solo impressions. So take it easy, everybody. Thank you.